Okay, well, welcome folks to what I call my canning room. And you can tell I've got several books on canning. I've got my water bath canner here, which is just basically a big pot that I use. And I've got the little colander, and of course I've got the shelves to put my jars in, right? Uh, I call this a canning room because it's pretty much everything that I use for preparing gets shoved into this room, right? Uh, I've got everything from books on your fruits, your pests, your herbs. Uh, it's just various books. Your ancient remedies book, right? How to gut and clean things. But I wanted to go over a couple things that I do that I think a lot of you would find beneficial. So, one of the things I do is I reuse my jelly jars for dry goods. Now, I buy the big packs of the dehydrated vegetables and also the big packs of like beans, rice. I dehydrate some myself, right? I got my own sunflowers, right? Now these are ones that I grew. So all of these sunflowers, I can take these seeds and replant them and get uh, sunflowers out of them, right? And then of course I've got my beans and my raw eggs, right, that I use in baking, and my favorite, which is freeze-dried pineapple, right? Um, but this is some of the things that you can do. You can reuse things for various things, right? Uh, you know, I've got beans, and more beans, right? Um, so this is what you do when you prep, right? Everybody always says, okay, two is one and one is none, okay? So I always have wet ones on hand, right? I always have wheat berries on hand. I've always got beans and rice on hand, okay? But I also always have some kind of sugar, some kind of like popcorn, uh, just things that you would want if you couldn't get to the store, right? Another thing I do is I reuse my Dr. Pepper bottles, right? And I put water in them. Now, this water here is, I can use it for drinking, but this water here I normally use for washing, right? Because it's older, it's been sitting for a while. I also reuse my milk jugs, right? And those are glass milk jugs, so if I needed to, I could make milk in those with non-fat dehydrated milk. But I also have a closet full. So, as I said, I buy these dehydrated vegetables in bulk. So, I have them in bulk. And that's what you need to do. You always want to think of, okay, backup heat, backup cooling, right? You back up on the Mr. Coffee Maker, right? Back up on my my pots and pans, right? Back up on my spice bottles, right? Back up, backup, right? So backup on my heat is also quilts, right? So, but I also do this. And I'm going to open this up. And you can say, oh man, that's crazy. Right? Now it's winter. And when winter comes around, this is what I live off of. Just so you know. I don't have to buy anything for winter. I have it all here, already stored, ready to go. And one of the things I do is I write the expiration date on my jars and on my canned goods. Now, to back the canned goods up, I also have freeze-dried. Okay, I have freeze-dried in buckets. I've got freeze-dried in cans. I got it everywhere. Okay. Do not do this. Do not buy these. And I'm going to show you why. Do not buy these. These are in plastic. Okay. And you want to see how brown they are? And I've kept them here just so I could show you. Do not buy these for long-term storage. All of this is a waste of money. Okay? That's a waste of money. That one there is a waste of money, and I've got several of them. I got about 4 or 5 of them there. Don't buy that, right? If you want fruit, you want to buy the fruit in the cans, right? Or you want to buy dehydrated or freeze-dried fruit. Okay? It just makes sense. Okay? Now, I have a lot of ramen. Obviously, I like ramen. And ramen can be used to make various soups. You can add it to soup mixes that you have, and you have a good meal, right? But I have found that the boxes of fruit do not last, right? They don't last. So save yourself some money and don't buy those. Long-term storage. For long-term storage, you want to go with freeze-dried, okay? Anytime you can. Now, the Keystone meats are absolutely great if you lose electricity. Those are great to have because all you got to do is heat them up, and they're pre-cooked. So they're actually there, okay? Salt. Always have salt. Whether you get Morton salt, Himalayan salt, kosher salt, right? Depending on what you're doing, you're going to need all different types of salt, right? You also notice I've got air conditioners here in case I lose electricity here due to a hurricane coming through. Well, I've got my solar generators. I got the little ones in here. I've got the big one in the living room. So I have that, right? Pressure canners. Now, pressure canners, if you're using pressure canners, you want to have either a stove that has the coils on top, or like I do, I have a commercial, we'll say that very clearly, commercial hot plate. And the reason you want to use a commercial hot plate is because of the weight. A regular hot plate will not heat up your pressure canner enough to be safe on the temperature and on cooking your food properly. So if you're going to use a big heavy pressure canner, and I recommend the All-American, you want to use a commercial hot plate. That's different from the little hot plate you're going to buy at Walmart. Okay? A commercial hot plate is probably $200. So just so you know that. Okay? it is rated for the weight. And that's why it's called commercial. So you want to look at that, and you want to make sure that you get the pressure canner that you're comfortable with. Now, I bought a pressure canner out of Walmart, a Presto. It lasted me 2 years before it finally got to the point where the bottom started to bevel from the intense heat needed to pressure can. And I saved up enough money to buy the All-American. Now, one thing with pressure canners is you want to keep, and I've got it in here, and yes, my house is a mess. You want to keep Vaseline. Now, Vaseline you use around the rim of the pressure canner to seal it, because this type of pressure canner has the locking studs on it instead of the little rubber seal that you would get like with the Presto. So if you're looking long term, you want something that you don't have to replace the rubber or the seals on. So you want something like the All-American. There's no rubber in that. And I can actually use this also to water bath can if I want. Okay? You have to think about, what do you eat? Okay? And how much do you eat? Right? So all of this that I've got here on these 2 shelves, by spring, most of it will be gone, because I'll eat a couple cans of these per meal, and it just gets used up. Okay? Yes, I have the Quaker Oats oatmeal. I like the Quaker Oats instant oatmeal. I also like the grits that Quaker makes. But that's up to you what you buy. I buy things that I eat. I don't buy things I don't eat. If I don't eat it, hence the fruit, if I don't eat it, it ends up going in the trash. So, take that for what it's worth. You don't want to waste your money, right? Some of my canned goods, I don't have a really great organizational skill. And so some of my canned goods are probably past the expiration date. And I'll look at that, and I'll look at the can. And when I open the can, I will determine, once I open the can, whether or not it's edible. But that's a chance I take. Now, if you don't want to take that chance, obviously you want to stick more with the freeze-dried foods. Okay? And yes, freeze-dried, you have to have a good source of water. Okay? So, just some ideas that I'm throwing out there for y'all that are just starting into prepping. It seems like a lot to do, but honestly, I've been at this for several years, and I don't expect you to have the stockpile that I have, okay? I started buying just one number 10 can a month. And it cost me, at the time, it was about, I'd buy the cheap ones, $12 to $15 a number 10 can. Or I'd buy the Keystone. I'd buy 2-3 cans of Keystone before winter, just to have it on the shelf. So it takes time to build a stockpile. But one of the things that I've heard everybody say is, oh, well, all that rice is going to have weevils in it. All that dried fruit that you've got is going to get bugs in it. So here's what I do. And I'm going to show you. I have a big freezer. Okay? See my rice? You see my flour down in the bottom? I keep rice in the freezer for a week to 2 weeks before I take it out and separate it into my jars. Okay? I keep my seeds. Keep all my seeds. All my seeds are up here in my freezer. When I get ready to plant the seeds, I'll take them out, I'll put them up here on the table, and I'll let them sit for 24 to 48 hours before I go and plant them. Because I want to bring them up to room temperature, right? That's the big generator right there. This basically is a big battery. Okay? It's a big battery. And when you use it, you have to be aware of how much power you're using for whatever device you're using, yada, yada, yada. So, my advice to people just getting into prepping, don't go crazy with it. If you can afford an extra $20 to $50 a month, buy one thing extra. Every time you go to the grocery store, every time I go to the grocery store, I might spend $3 to $12 extra from what my actual grocery bill is to add to my stockpile. I don't go crazy with it. I don't spend $300 to $1,000 whenever I buy things, right? And I try and offset my costs by growing my own. And then, of course, you've seen it. I have the dehydrator, I have the water bath canner, I have the pressure canner. And I can can it up, and I can dehydrate it and grind it up into powder. I can make all my spices, right? These are all my spices. That's all spices, folks. A lot of that I grew myself. Just reuse the jars, right? Just reuse the little jars that you got from the store. It doesn't take thousands of dollars to have what you need. Your idea is, let's get through the crisis, right? And that crisis could be 3 days, it could be 3 months. But that's your whole idea, is to get through the crisis. So your thought should be, if I use this one item all the time, good example would be a coat. You use a coat in the wintertime all the time. Common sense would tell you to at least have 2 coats. One in case your coat gets soaking wet and you need to switch out while that coat dries into a dry coat. And 2, what happens if you bust the zipper, break the buttons off, and you don't know how to fix it? So, I hear a lot of preppers who have been doing it for a long, long time, and they come at it from the perspective that the individual does not understand how they got so much stuff so fast. The reality is that a lot of the preppers that are online that are talking to you about prepping have been doing it for decades. So of course their stockpile is going to be big. Because if you figure they're going in every week, every time they go to the grocery store, they're buying something to put in their stockpile. After decades of doing that, they got a big stockpile. Right? So I don't want you to go out and just go crazy buying a whole bunch of stuff. What I want you to do is sit down, write down everything that your family spends and uses in a week, and then figure out how often you use those items. If you only use those items in the winter, okay, you need 4 months of that supply, maybe 5, depending on where you're living. If you're in Alaska, I'm sorry, you need 9 months. If if you only use it once a month, that's all you need to buy. Okay? If you only make spaghetti once a month and you only use 1 jar of spaghetti once a month, why would you have 50 jars of spaghetti sauce? That's stupid. Only buy what you're going to use. Right? And the whole purpose of having a stockpile is to back up if you can't get to the store, or if something happens to where you lose your job, or there's some kind of crisis that happens. Let's say like COVID, right? You have a pandemic that comes through and you're locked in your house for 2 weeks. Well, if you've got food for a month in your house, you're fine. If you don't, you're screwed. So you need to think of these things. And a lot of people tell me, why are you showing your stockpile? I'm showing you my stockpile because I'm not a crazy prepper. I'm not a hoarder. Everything I've got, I use. And I've seen so many preppers online that do not use their stockpile. It's there for show. And if you were to ask them, how do you can potatoes? Or how do you can meat? They haven't a freaking clue. They don't have a clue what they need. So, this is why I'm talking to you. And I want to make it clear, I'm just a beginner. Okay? There are people that know a lot more than me on how to do this. And there are people that I know that are a lot more organized than I am. Okay? But what I do works for me. So if what you're doing works for you, keep doing that. Right? But you need to realize that there's going to come a time where you're not going to be able to pick up the phone and order stuff. Where you're not going to be able to look at the phone and get all this information at your fingertips. Right? So you need to have backups to that in case the internet goes down. In case the phones go out of service. God forbid you have a huge flood that happens, like happened during Helene or Katrina. Right? God forbid that you're in an earthquake zone, like in Chile. God forbid that you're in the Philippines and you have a flood come through and mudslides. And now you got to figure out what to do. And now you're not only trying to figure out what to do for you, but probably for your neighbors also. So, that's why I made this channel. It's because I got fed up listening to people selling all these products online. I'm not here to sell you a product. I'm here to tell you it just makes common sense to have insurance on your shelf so that your family gets fed, so that you're warm in the icy cold, like those in Dallas that lost the heat for a week and a half, so that you're cool in the heat of the summer, like those in Denver that had a power outage on some of the hottest days of the year. Right? This is what you need to think about. Because if you're planning on the government saving you, that's not going to happen. I hate to burst your bubble, but that's not going to happen. You're on your own. And you need to realize that you are on your own. And if you can find people that you get along with, that you can survive with, kudos to you. Most people can't. Most people are on their own and have to figure it out on their own. How many people this year have we seen get laid off, lose their jobs, and become homeless? It's right there in our faces, and a lot of people refuse to see it. How many people do we know that are struggling to pay the water bill, to pay the electric bill, to pay the rent, pay the mortgage bill? And they have to make the decision between paying a mortgage bill or putting food on the table. Well, I'm telling you, this is the way you do it, that you don't get back into that situation. Once you get out of the bad situation, this is where you need to move. And this is what you need to think about. So if it ever happens to you again, you're not in a situation where you have to skip meals so that your kids can eat. And yeah, I'm a little bit emotional about that, because I've been in that situation. Okay? I know what the government will give you. I know what kind of help is out there. You might as well go take your head and bang it up against a tree for the amount of help that you're going to get. That's the honest truth. And I hate to burst bubbles, but I'm going to do it all day long if it helps one person. One person wake up and realize, hey, I need to take care of my family. Hey, this is not hoarding, this is insurance. Hey, yeah, I can feed the neighborhood for a week. Hear what I just said. Because if a bad situation happens, you're not going to be on your own. You're going to have a bunch of people around you who are your neighbors, your friends, your family, and you're going to want to be able to do something to help them. That's the truth. And this is a way to do it. And yeah, it might cost you a little bit of money up front. But if you go at it smartly and just buy a little extra here and there, just a little extra. That's what our grandparents did in the Great Depression. They just bought a little extra. They put up a little extra when they had it. So when they didn't have it, they had it. Hope this resonates with y'all. And I know I'm kind of beating my horn here, but I felt some of this needed to be spoken about, right? Because everybody says food, water, heat, air conditioning. They don't think further beyond that, right? They don't think, okay, everything goes out, all electricity's gone. What do you do now, right? It's been 6 months, you've grown all this food, what do you do? How do you survive the next winter? How do you look at 10 years from now, how you're surviving? Everybody wants to look at right now, today. You need to think about 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Right? Long-term survival. But first, you need to get the temporary done. And for me, that's to get through winter. Because, winter, paychecks go down, hours go down, money goes down. So, it's just a lifestyle that I've had for years. And it's just simple tips, folks. It's just simple to do. It is not hard to do. It's not hard to do. It's just everybody is so scared to start something because they see these preppers online who've got, my God, they're showing $50,000 worth of equipment. Most people can't spend $5 for stuff. What are you thinking? You're way, way up here in the sky somewhere compared to the normal people down here on the ground. Most people are lucky if they can spend $1.99 for a pack of seeds and hope that some of them sprout. Let's get back down to basics, folks. Think about what you're saving for. Look at rotating your stock, which I'm not great at. I'll be the first one to admit that. Be willing to accept your mistakes and learn from them. Because if you keep doing the same thing the same way, and expecting different results, well, you're just plain insane. That's the definition of insanity, by the way. Bicycle.